Hi guys, and welcome once again to Curated Logic, where we try and up your brain game. You know, as I look for puzzle games to play and review for this channel, I run into difficulties choosing what games are best to play. Of course, I am limited by the consoles I currently own, or do not own, which is more to the point. But even then, there are just so many to choose from. One of the biggest factors in making these choices, unsurprisingly, is whether or not the game appeals to me. But I have come to realize that I am just not that great a judge of what I will like based on reviews or synopses alone. It is often the games I hold out the least hope for that end up being the ones I like the most. So when I came across Labyrinth City, a game based on the Pierre the Maze Detective books, I decided to look past the questions I had about it being potentially aimed too heavily towards children, and that my instincts told me that the reviews were being a little too generous, and I gave it a red hot go. In doing this, I found out that although sometimes my instincts are off, sometimes they are bang on the money. A game that relies heavily on beautiful illustration, and it is beautiful illustration. Labyrinth City has a lot of promise, but as a puzzle game, it fails, I feel, for children and adults alike, to provide any real challenge or give enough variety and reward to stave off the unfortunate dullness that quickly accompanies playing. In Labyrinth City, you play Pierre, the eponymous maze detective, who is trying to retrieve the maze stone from the dastardly Mr. X. Mr. X is going to use this stone for his own nefarious means. Through numerous scenes, Pierre travels from within a museum to amongst the trees to city centres, having to find his way through a maze of people and objects and buildings in order to make his way to the various people he has to get information from before he can locate and go after Mr. X at the end of each scene. Along the way, Pierre has smaller, optional tasks he can complete, such as finding pages from Mr. X's journal, or stars that are going to be stolen by a ninja should Pierre not get to them first. But the only necessary task is finding Mr. X in each scenario so that Pierre can move on to the next one. The videos that make up the story are really cute and are well performed by the voice actors and are punctuated, like the whole game is, beautifully by great music and sound effects. But the story itself is a little generic and confusing. I don't know if the Maze Stone is introduced within the books, but it, as a concept, I didn't find massively enthralling, and to be honest, cannot now remember exactly what its point was. It just kind of ended up feeling like the story was there to explain why Mr. X was being chased by Pierre, but without providing the depth or real intrigue that I would have thought would have come with something so mysterious as a stolen artifact. With this being said, I can almost hear some of you saying that if this is a game aimed more towards kids than adults, the story shouldn't be too involved. It needs to be simple for kids to follow along. And the real point of the game is in the imagery. Well, really, to that, I say I don't think so. Even if a kid cannot articulate it, they often gravitate to stories that are well structured and are more than just a device for gameplay, have a little more depth. And unfortunately, this story just didn't provide any of that. Despite this, as mentioned in the intro, I do grant you that the illustrations are what give this game its heart. They are both beautiful and intricate, making it not surprising the books are considered to be Where's Wally-esque. Like Where's Wally, there is a lot to see in every single scene. The unfortunate thing with this, however, is that Unlike in a book where the whole scene is right before your eyes, the scenes within the game are revealed piece by piece as you make your way through the maze of crowds and structures. Although I understand why it is done this way, I can't say that I found the search for things in this way as pleasing and relaxing as I remember it being doing the same thing by looking at a beautiful full image laid out in front of you in a book. Unless there was one that I did not find, I found no way to zoom out to see the full image, which would have been a great addition and a fantastic way of seeing the entire setting so you could have the best of both worlds, like you're looking at a book but from within a game. This would have made the whole experience, for me at least, more pleasing and allowed for a chance to see if there were any humorous little interconnected scenes playing out across the level, as was so often the case within spreads of Where's Wally. Given that my instincts said that Labyrinth City was indeed aimed heavily towards kids, and after playing it I still think that's true, I was surprised to find that the controls were a little confusing to begin with no tutorial offered as to how they worked, which proved for me a little frustrating, so I can imagine it would probably do the same for some kids. For instance, I could not for the life of me figure out how to look at the journal pages I had collected outside of having just picked up a new one and them popping up in front of me. Character movement also proved to be a little clunky and stiff, which I think was a side effect of there being only specific gaps and places that Pierre could move through. I was also actually surprised, this time in spite of it being for kids, how simple the game actually was. Called a puzzle game, the game actually did not provide many real puzzles. The mazes themselves are not hard, and even if you hit a dead end, it takes very little time to find the right way to go, mainly because there are purple arrows pointing you in the correct direction everywhere. The search for stars, chests, and journal pages is really just about finding your way through the maze, with no extra complexity added to these tasks most of the time. There are the occasional mini-game type puzzles in each level, which provide some extra variety and fun, and there are a couple of timed elements added into mazes late in the game, but these extra moments of enjoyment and variety are fleeting. You just end up being back making your way through the maze, which gets monotonous very fast. I would have loved it, for instance, if the ninja that said they were going to steal the stars actually did, if you were not fast enough, and you had to race them to get it, or that the objects you collected provided something extra to the game, more than just an increase in your tally of that object. I also found it a little confusing that most of the journal pages seem to add nothing really to the game outside of collecting them to increase your tally. A couple provided hints for the aforementioned minigames, but most just appeared to be filler, which, given they look like they could be secret code for the player to figure out, was slightly disappointing and to me a real missed opportunity to get something more into this game. I really feel that even kids would get bored of the gameplay for how little it actually offers beyond the search and collect elements of the game. So, after mulling it over, I actually think I would give this game the same score for kids as I would for adults, a 6 out of 10. Anyone of game playing age wouldn't have to think too hard to be able to finish this game, and as such, finishing it doesn't offer any real sense of satisfaction. And unfortunately, no matter how lovely the illustrations and accompanying scene setting aspects, without a little more to it, Labyrinth City leaves you feeling just a little dissatisfied. I hope you enjoyed that review of Labyrinth City, Pierre the Maze Detective. If you did, please like and subscribe to keep the content coming. Also, if you have a game you are keen for me to review or do a walkthrough for, please let me know in the comments below. Aside from YouTube, you can also follow Curated Logic on any of our socials listed above or below. I hope wherever you are in the world you are keeping safe and happy. Until next time, keep upping your brain game and have fun. See ya.